Dr. Isabella Pasqualini, welcome to the NeuroArchitect.
Hi, Maria. Thank you very much for having me.
You're trained as an architect and later completed a PhD bridging architecture with cognitive neuroscience.
Maria, this is very interesting. In recent days, I have been preoccupying myself very much with that question. I mean, what's the motivation to get involved in such a technical, I would say, and scientific endeavor, which is still far apart from, the more creative work that an architect does. So there's quite a gap between the two worlds. But at the time when I chose to do so, that seemed the only realistic solution. One of the problems was the human factor. And I thought I need to know better why people have these ownership feelings. And that brought me straight into the neuroscience topic, with this body ownership.
What's your simplest explanation of your practice today?
Usually I just say I am an architect. I'm a designer. That I care about how spaces are shaped for the user. So from a user-centric perspective. And then people, of course, ask me, but how do I have to imagine, your day-to-day business? And actually, I work in research. For now, the projects I'm working on, if it's not research, it's more related to media and virtual reality. And on the other hand, when it comes down to this research practice, to really combining neuroscience and architecture, I say it's about perceiving space, the perception of space. How do humans, perceive their environment and interact with it?
So people who take advantage, let's say, or use your work will be more people in the field. How will they use your findings? What do you tell them? Why it's important? So many people now, many even students are new. They feel that this is new to them. How will you tell them that this is something that architecture needs today?
What is an architect supposed to do? So I think I would start there in wanting to work on an identity of the architect in that field, the person who really has the capacity to handle the intersection between the human and technology, because there will be nobody else between the user, between the person, and between this whole machine that is building so much. There's nobody else. There's just the architect. And I'd like students to take responsibility there, to be really capable, to really be conscious of what they are doing and to interpret it in a creative way.
Since you mentioned the fast shift, because I also felt it, suddenly we saw many, software emerge, many ways that are different from the process we experienced. Even we had at some point to still rely on our handwork to feel the project. And now it's like almost inexistent. Maybe the first year of studies only. So how did you experience this shift in software use for architecture?
What you say is a loss of scale in architecture. We should try to put these two kinds of scales together again. And what you mentioned before, the handwork is very important. It has shaped my understanding of space so well to get to a point where I could build a model just from touching a material, almost eyes closed. It's a form of intelligence that I think we should not lose.
I see it as a sensory embodiment because you're using your senses. You're really feeling that you're modeling the project. And this is what I told my students as well. If at some point you need to live this experience, to be able to use the human senses and feel it projected in your projects, to feel this communication, because humans are in constant unconscious communication with what's around them. So if you don't feel this communication, you will not be able to help people understand this kind of communication. You'll not be able to deliver a message that people must be grounded in their place through this communication and sensory experience, urban and interior.
Absolutely. Maria, it's a sensory motor process. When I am building a model, I have to engage in that process. You know, I have to do that effort to produce that shape in front of myself in terms of movements and in terms also of visions of what could be happening in there. So I have always these two sides happening in front of myself. And this is very important. A digital tool cannot take that effort.
What did you see based on your experience? Did you try, for example, to see this embodiment through one sense and then you saw that other senses are engaged, or you tried to see how the whole body can feel architecture around it?
Yes. Through the experiments at the laboratory, the skin is a three-dimensional organ, meaning that if you manage to dissociate vision is 2D, the brain is processing it as a two-dimensional information. But then if you bring it together with the tactile information from your skin, which is, as we all know, is this three-dimensional shape, it has this morphology, it becomes spatial. So you get that roomy character. It's this feeling of being inside, which in humans evokes, you know, maybe ideas of shelter, familiarity, identity, all of that very basic feelings that you not used to capture consciously.
It's very important what you said, because on the one hand, we must understand that the skin has receptors. And so it's not only a block of stone or wood around you, it's this whole information and what the material is projecting also to you, like from its composition. Also, the consequences of staying at home, for example, during pandemics, or staying indoors, because this is now the nature of our jobs and our lifestyle. It shows us how we're now seeing what's around us through this 2D detached dimension. Whereas we need this 3D dimension you talked about to feel that we are a part of this place. So now we are in this era of detachment. What do you see the consequences are on us, and what should we do to solve it?
Yes, I think that one of the general misconceptions, if I may call it that way, or of the very general broad assumptions that people have, is that there is a personality sitting in the body, right? And that this personality is finished maybe at the age of 20, right? That you develop it and then you have this character which is in the person. But if we look at neuroscience and if we look at the studies that have been done at the lab over the past 30 years, it has become very clear that it's very organic, that this I feeling is something which is based on the entire body, on the feedback that you have, for instance, through your feet on the ground. So the fact that we're sitting inside the whole day will change that person in that body. That's changing us without us seeing it. And I think that over the years, this has a lasting effect. And when you mention the pandemic or maybe other conditions that are worrisome today, that in our time are difficult, which is maybe changing our behavior, this will have a profound impact that we don't know yet. We have to assume that this cutting down freedom of people will change people massively, starting at a very young age.
Can you explain to us this full body illusion and our responsibilities to create immersive spaces?
Yes. The full body illusion is based on these neuronal associations. Neurons, you know, that are firing together in two distinct areas of the brain. There are constant parallel processes in the brain that can be measured with different tools, and we have also different names for it. So we are using these both mechanisms to generate experience. And, you know, meaning that silence or dissociation has also a meaning. Because what I have mentioned to you, the visual tactile illusion, is just visual and tactile. It doesn't include yet any motor properties.
In my interpretation of what you're saying, I can say that we need alignment and meaning in the context we're in. to have this sense of presence, to have this harmony in both conscious and unconscious dimensions. And I understand also that time and space are language per se, and the nonverbal is also a language. And we need all this frame with these components to have a narrative. And when we have a narrative of the place, we can engage in it. We can feel that we're in it in terms of sensory experience and our mental construct of it. So we need an
Yes.
alignment between the bodily experience and the construct of what we're experiencing at a sensory level. Because also you
Yes.
mentioned
That is
the organ, and even people they have this ghost experience, the organ ghost experience. So they feel that it's here. The body is saying it's here, and they're not using it, even if they have an accident and they have to remove a body part.
yes, the phantom limb. Yes.
The phantom limb.
Um, that is very well said, Maria. And I think that narrative should also come back on that very sensory level, haptic level of architecture, so that the architect becomes a narrator of the space, also through affordance, because affordance is changing our perception of space a lot.
And this reveals also how important it is when we are doing a space, especially at the urban level, to have a narrative of the space, because narrative creates identity. Without a narrative, all types of identities, by the way, the social, the personal, the national, without a narrative, we're lost. We lose the sense of time, even. We lose the track of events. We don't know our past to understand the future. We don't know where we stand. We don't know how to judge what's happening, even in architecture. Is it good for us? Is it bad for us?
As architects, we are very well educated, and basically, neuroscientists would be very interested in that, but they know little about it because the environmental impact is very little studied because we're still trying to figure out the brain and the body, let's say,
Mm.
in itself, how it interacts. And if you mention history, that is absolutely true. That is also the contribution by social sciences to architecture, right? We need to be embedded in a certain history and a certain identity, that it matters. And if we lose that identity, apparently we become very manipulable. It is very dangerous for human society to be in that void.
And this is the importance of having the multidisciplinary communication to reach the outcomes necessary to design a place from a city to the smallest room, even. If you want to design, for example, a room for you to a bedroom, you need something that aligns with what you are. Maybe you are sensory overloaded like easily. And here also we will have different subfields in the same field. And you're saying also that we have numbers.
One thing which has become very interesting recently to me is to work with ethnographers, and in particular, sensory ethnography, where you would go and really characterize, the tactile and the haptic features of a space to understand the environment of the user. So the architect needs to become that person that I've mentioned between the human factor and technology. We need to understand how to handle this collaboration. I have stopped producing images because people have gotten so used to consume, and now another image and another image. So that's not useful anymore.
Just
It has
dopamine.
lost its
It's
impact.
just dopamine and adrenaline and the sense of awe at the moment, instant, gratification, as Palasma says,
Exactly.
and then it's
Exactly.
gone. Not only gone, it's tiring after a while.
Yeah, it is. It is. And we don't get smarter from that. So we should start to think.
You're talking also about this number of renders. We said it's tiring, but it's not only tiring, it's just also added information on our brain that we don't need. We need our energy for other kind of information, for other kinds of
Mhm.
activities. Also, you mentioned the role we talk about as architects. So since my first year at the architecture school, I hear l'architecte est le chef d'orchestre. The architect is the maestro. So for people who want to use it, there are two types of people. People who want to use it as a status, but also people who hear from this the amount of responsibility an architect has. So this responsibility comes with all this information we're talking about. And alone, it's quite complex to have the full knowledge in all these disciplines. Maybe you will have some knowledge. And this is why collaboration is always welcome. And this is why we need to know the team. We need to build, to have around us, to have the outcome that we are visualizing for the future. And we need to study from university where we are still soft. We need to study uh, how to have this vision, where we need to arrive, the final destination to our project. So it's not only about a beautiful instant project. We need to see the outcome on the society. Okay, we cannot study each person in the society, but the general outcome. Where are we heading with it? In all these point of views of these other disciplines.
Yes, I believe that is such a big challenge and a big issue today, what you mentioned.
Dr. Isabella, thank you so much for this interesting
Thank
conversation.
you.
And thanks for watching us.